Stonebender, breaker of the Voodoo Engine, hero of Royal Moffat, and the second smartest orc on Panos. I realized that I had been caught mid-soliloquy when I heard my mate and my son howling with laughter somewhere behind me. Rather than acknowledge the mirth of my family, I feigned stoicism and stared out upon the ocean. I reminded myself that I was the suave, striking orc captain of this 15-ton caravel. I had bought it with gold that had been earned through blood and through trials. I was the master of all I surveyed, the leader of... Benno's voice cut through my musings like a flaming sword through snow. "Do you think he imagines himself in some kind of uniform when he does this?" Ames was quick to pile on. "Well, he's getting old, kiddo. His memory isn't everything that it used to be. In that poor, addled head, he's probably concocted a full and glorious naval career." I heaved a long-suffering sigh and looked over my left shoulder. A pair of wicked, toothy grins were waiting for me. On the left, my mate. The white-furred werecat regarded me with narrowed emerald-green eyes. I knew the difference between Ames's upset glare and their amused peering. Gods know, we had been together long enough. The jovial little tail flicks were a dead giveaway as well. My feline's chest was shaking just a bit, likely trying to avoid laughing directly in my face. On the right, my son. He was pretending to be innocent. The younger orc was looking slightly above my head, bare green arms folded across his chest. It was amazing how many of our mannerisms that the lad had picked up in just the last 2 years. Sometimes it was like I was looking into a mirror, only to find a pair of green, hazel-flecked eyes staring back at me, eyes that were filled with intelligence. When I qualified my initial statement, it was because of Benno. I had once been the smartest orc on all of Panos. Now that mantle was laid firmly upon his shoulders. I asked, "Don't the two of you have something better to do? Tying a rope or making lunch or something?" Ames reminded me, "I'm taking the wheel because you're supposed to be making lunch, Captain Stonebender." Benno murmured, "Breaker of the Voodoo Engine, hero of Royal Moffat, lunch lady." I stalked past the two of them, but not before grabbing Benno by the ear. He yelped and swatted at my arm. When I let go, he dutifully followed his old man down to the galley. Sandwiches were on the menu today, as we had to finish the bread before it went stale. We would have none for the return journey. To be fair, no leavened loaf would survive this salty sea air for long. Even though I had paid for her, the RMN Taboo was technically part of the Royal Moffat Navy. The designation was a gift from the King and Queen for services above and beyond the heroic standard. It meant that technically she could be pressed into service in times of war, but I still had sole authority to assign crew to her. The important part of the RMN designation was I didn't have to pay docking fees or duty in any port on the South Coast. They say it's good to be king, but sometimes it's even better to be the king's favorite orc. The Taboo had made good time so far. We were 2 days out of Limpt and sailing east-southeast towards the open ocean. We'd reach our destination within an hour. According to ancient maps, this area once hosted a family of 20 small islands. All of them had been reclaimed by the sea within the last couple of centuries. In the galley, Benno and I formed our usual assembly line. I used my dagger, an instrument that had not seen action outside of a kitchen for half a dozen seasons, to slice up our bounty. Bread, smoked fish, and cheese were passed to my left. My son artfully assembled the pieces and added the appropriate garnishings and condiments. He had a knack for food. If he wasn't such a damned fine mage, we would have put him to work in the spastic vole as a chef. I watched those nimble fingers, just as comfortable making a tuna sandwich as they were conjuring a stream of acid bolts. Benno was about 14 now, which was considered adulthood within the southern tribes. He had gone from scrawny young whelp to strapping young man in no time at all. But his fingers would never be like mine. He wouldn't grow up with the abuse, the manual labor, and the exposure to the elements that I had to endure. He would earn his first calluses when he started to adventure, or when he began crafting at the Arcane University, or perhaps when he took up a musical instrument. Images of my past and a myriad of his potential futures washed through my mind. I tried to sort through them in an orderly way, but something was distracting me. "Dad! Hey, Dad!" My eyes quickly found my son's. "Sorry," I murmured. Benno smiled at me gently. He said, "You were far away." I quickly took up 2 of the wooden plates. "Yeah." The younger orc picked up his own meal. "It's happening more and more. Do you think we should talk to Max, or maybe Hematath?" I shook my head and said, "Not right now, kiddo. Please." He bit his lower lip a little bit. Then Benno shrugged and let the matter drop. He walked up the narrow stairway leading to the forecastle deck, and I followed in silence. I had made a couple of modifications to the taboo. Some of them involved adjustments to the rigging and sails so that they were easier for invisible servants to handle. Given how many mages would likely be using the small ship, that seemed like a wise investment, but another change was the installation of benches on either side of the ship's wheel. They provided the captain with a little more shelter from sea spray, as well as additional cover in battle. But most importantly, the benches meant that our little family could eat together without abandoning our posts.